surprisingly long history. It was first seriously thought on by French philosopher René Descartes in the 17th century. Among many things, Descartes imagined an evil demon figure using a great and ominous power to deceive unsuspecting humans by projecting a kind of unreal reality. A modern take on Descartes' evil demon argument has since been formulated by the Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom in his 2003 paper on what's now known as the simulation hypothesis. The premise behind Bostrom's hypothesis is that all of reality could be an artificial sim most likely run by an advanced supercomputer or civilization. In pop culture, the 1999 movie The Matrix offers perhaps the most famous use of this idea, where humans live in an artificially constructed world run by highly advanced machines. But putting wild blockbuster imagination aside, could this really be what's happening to us right now? Well, it depends. Any civilization capable of running such a sim must first have reached a level of technological advancement enabling them to create one. Remember, we're talking total control here over everything from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy. And to apply all that to the multiverse model, the sim controllers would need to have built a kind of endless loop into their system too, to generate all of the infinite possibilities of multiple realities. Such a civilization would also need to have generated a convincing means of simulated consciousness, however, to match natural, genuine consciousness, so that inhabitants of the sim, in this case us, remain totally unsuspecting. The idea entirely depends, then, on whether such an advanced and capable civilization could ever exist. But a simulated multiverse has certainly been theorized before, including as part of the theoretical physicist Brian Greene's 9 multiverse types. So what would a sim multiverse actually mean? Well, the advanced civilizations needed to run them would firstly require access to enormous amounts of computational resources in their world, the real world. Some possibilities for obtaining this include the building of a civilization that's based on nanomachines spreading out forever, or on giant megastructures like Matryoshka machines where the entire energy output of a star is harvested to power a stellar computer. Pool all of that power together into one single spectacular generator machine, and a custom-built multiverse might be possible, in theory. Although, of course, that multiverse could never truly encapsulate all of reality, seeing as the controllers themselves would exist outside of it. It places a different slant on the overall idea, however, wherein humanity, the universe, and all of reality as we know it exists as just one simulation among potentially millions of others, much as with various simulator video games in our world. Everything we know and can ever know could then exist on some disk somewhere, or as part of some kind of expansion pack, which is a pretty frightening thought, especially if that disk were ever to get lost or scratched or snapped or thrown away. It's a somewhat outlandish way to view life, certainly. But thanks in part to our own rapid technological advancements in the past few decades, support for the simulation hypothesis in general has mounted in recent years, including famously from Neil deGrasse Tyson and Elon Musk. Physicists generally interpret the simulation hypothesis by viewing the universe as a flow of information as opposed to energy. This shift was particularly pushed by one John Wheeler, a pioneer of quantum computing in the late 1970s. In almost all models, though, reality, true reality, needs to exist as though on another higher level, a different dimension or a different plane of existence. It's only from there that this sim, our world, could possibly be born. Although there are various down-the-rabbit-hole theories to propose that actually a sim might be possible on our level too, so that we end up with simulated realities inside simulated realities and on forever. Clearly, if this is true, it's pretty advanced stuff. Down here, though, on the ground, so to speak, we know that there are endless mysteries and inconsistencies about our reality that could quite simply be explained away if we just blamed it on the controllers of the sim. The many wonders of quantum mechanics especially would begin to look different from our point of view. For example, in one version of the multiverse, all moments of choice or chance, even at the quantum level, are actually the genesis for another new timeline and therefore another world. This is already an eerie thought, but in a simulated hypothesis it begins to take on a different meaning. Now those quantum splits are controlled by whatever runs the sim, in a similar way as to how we press buttons to make even tiny choices for characters in video game sims today. Perhaps more so than with any other multiverse model, the simulated multiverse certainly does require some sort of higher power, you might call it God, to make it work. If we were to accept the simulated multiverse then, how should we go about our lives with that knowledge? One suggestion might be to strive for greater heights in this world as we understand it, to better our position, and therefore to lessen the likelihood of ourselves getting turned off. It's an idea that's been mused by, amongst others, the economist Robin Hanson. But it's an approach that could also inevitably lead to a selfish existence for all, where our personal wants and goals would trump everything else. And perhaps that particular reality wouldn't function all that well for all that long before chaos took hold. Another aspect to consider is, should we even be trying to prove a simulated reality at all, if indeed that is what we're living in? According to some interpretations of the model, this could spell instant trouble. The idea being that if we were to somehow know the sim was true, then that act of knowing could either end our simulated existence or crash the simulation itself. In other words, we may have effectively completed the game, or corrupted it, which in either case would result in game over. But finally, to be clear, the simulated multiverse is still an idea only. There is very little beyond our own imaginative theories that we can use to support the view as a true way of the world. The simulation hypothesis in general isn't without its fair share of skeptics or detractors either. For one, the Harvard physicist Lisa Randall has continually rallied against the idea. One argument against the simulation might also boil down to the notion that humans are inherently motivated by self-interest. But rather than this being a strategy to survive a simulated reality, we could ask why a higher species would bother simulating us in the first place. If you had all that power, would you remake humans in the 21st century? Or would you do something else? There have been various studies, too, to show how completely and extremely difficult it would be to simulate even a tiny part of this reality. Of course, on the flip side of that, if the simulated multiverse were true, then it probably would appear impossible from our lowly perspective and position. Ultimately, then, it's a question of what we're capable of and what anything is capable of. As we move through the 21st century, our computing powers are predicted to increase so that within just one generation's time, humans will look back at today and wonder how the heck we ever got anything done. But even so, there are giant strides between that and becoming a next-level civilization with the multiverse in the palm of its hand. If no civilization or group has ever made that jump, then no, we aren't living in a simulated multiverse. But if such a power is ever achievable, then in a universe or multiverse with infinite possibilities, perhaps there is something out there that's guiding our every move.